10 years had passed, and yet the echoes of high school hallways never fully left Cassidy Moore. The laughter, the whispered insults, the cruel pranks, they all lingered like shadows that refused to fade. Once labeled the class loser, she had endured every imaginable humiliation, each one planting a seed of determination in her that no one had anticipated. Cassidy had left town after graduation, carrying nothing but a worn backpack and a bruised ego, but she hadn't stayed small for long. Over the years she had transformed, not just physically but mentally, emotionally, and in every skill that mattered. Yet despite her achievements, she kept a low profile, quietly excelling in a world that had underestimated her. Until one afternoon, a single email arrived with a subject line that made her chest tighten. "You're invited to the 10-year reunion." At first, Cassidy's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Part of her wanted to ignore it, to let her past remain buried. But curiosity, that delicate and dangerous thread, tugged at her. She opened the email and read it carefully. "We'd love to see you at the reunion. It's been 10 years and it would be hilarious to catch up." The word hilarious burned her like acid, and a slow, deliberate smile spread across her face. They thought they were calling her back to mock her. They had no idea she wasn't coming back as the girl they had tormented. She had a plan, and it was as precise as it was poetic. The next days were a flurry of preparation. Cassidy didn't rush to buy a dress or hire a limo. She wanted impact, and impact required strategy. Every detail mattered. She arranged a unique arrival, something that would make everyone pause, something that screamed, "I am not the person you remember." Her contacts from a top-tier security and aviation network made the logistics simple. Soon, the venue's parking lot was about to witness a moment it would never forget. Meanwhile, the former classmates were buzzing with anticipation. Unaware of the storm headed their way, Tyler Granger, the self-proclaimed king of the class, led the charge. He had coordinated the reunion to be a playful jab at Cassidy, texting his friends with taunting glee. "She'll never show up," he scoffed, leaning back in his chair at the country club where the reunion was to be held. "And if she does, she'll be, well, hilarious to watch." Around him, the usual crew chuckled, girls and boys who had once made Cassidy the target of endless jokes. There was a sense of superiority, of entitlement, that only came from believing your high school reputation defined your entire life. They didn't know, of course, that their idea of power would crumble in minutes. On the day of the reunion, the atmosphere was primed with nostalgia and latent arrogance. Balloons swayed lightly in the late afternoon breeze, a jazz trio played soft tunes, and the scent of catered hors d'oeuvres floated through the hall. Friends laughed, recalling shared memories, while a few newcomers tried to find their footing among the familiar faces. Conversations bubbled with jokes, and in the middle of it all, Tyler could barely contain his smug anticipation. His eyes scanned the parking lot occasionally, half expecting a no-show. Then a subtle vibration ran through the air. The chatter faltered. A distant low thrum, almost mechanical, grew steadily louder. The doors of the reunion hall swung open just as Cassidy's phone pinged with a confirmation, initiating arrival sequence. Through the massive glass windows, the guests saw a blur of motion overhead. Then the impossible happened. The unmistakable silhouette of a military-grade Apache helicopter appeared, its rotor blades cutting the sky with rhythmic precision. The crowd froze. Conversations stuttered and stopped. Phones were lifted instinctively, hands shook, jaws dropped. Cassidy stepped out onto the platform that had been rigged for her grand entrance. She was no longer the shy, awkward girl who had once cowered in the shadows. Her hair glinted under the setting sun, styled to perfection. Her dress was commanding, black with subtle gold accents that caught the light with every movement. High-heeled boots gave her presence a grounded authority, a subtle nod to her unapologetic strength. Sunglasses shielded her eyes, but could not hide the confidence radiating from her posture. Every person who had once laughed at her realized in a gut-wrenching instant that she had become a force they could not comprehend. Whispers ran through the crowd like wildfire. "Is that Cassidy Moore?" someone asked, voice trembling. She's huge now." The words were true, though size wasn't the point. Power, presence, and precision were what mattered. Cassidy walked slowly toward the open doors of the hall, letting the sound of the helicopter fade into a tense silence. Every step was deliberate, every breath measured, a silent statement of dominance. The people who had once mocked her were now caught in the pure gravity of their misjudgment. Tyler, frozen mid-laugh from an earlier joke, could not speak. Mason and Claire, who had once joined in the ridicule, looked around desperately, as if hoping someone else would explain this impossible transformation. Inside the hall, Cassidy's entrance caused a ripple of astonishment. Cameras from old friends whipped out their phones, capturing a moment they would never forget. The Apache's shadow fell across the polished floor, and Cassidy's figure emerged from it like a dark comet blazing into the room. She didn't rush. There was no haste, only absolute control. Each former tormentor met her gaze, and in that instant they were forced to confront the memory of every insult, every humiliation they had inflicted. Cassidy didn't need words. Her presence, her arrival, the sheer audacity of it all, spoke louder than any speech could.